What does it mean when someone says, "A gun is pressed against your head at your own doorstep"? Take a look at the deployment of the US military's Typhoon missile systems in the Philippines today, and it'll all become clear. This situation alone has already become a major concern for Beijing, a sword hanging over the heads of people along the southeast coast. In fact, Beijing has protested 7 times last year over this issue, and that's not all. Just this February, they repeated the same protests. Just when Beijing thought that was the maximum pressure they could receive, a more devastating piece of news came from the muddy ground of the Philippines. US soldiers, dissatisfied with the Typhoon system's slow reloading speed, conducted an upgraded surgery right on site, cutting the reloading time by half. Once this news broke, the situation completely changed. For the Philippines, this is nothing short of divine intervention. They suddenly realized that the bodyguard they had called in is not only capable of fighting, but is also a transformer who can upgrade and evolve on site. Now the Philippines is completely confident, and their stance has become firmer than ever. So when Beijing protested again, the Philippines couldn't even be bothered to respond. In June, the defense minister of the Philippines shot back and said that what we could do on our own territory is for our national defense, and it has nothing to do with China. Beijing fell completely silent. They realized that every protest had become an international joke. The more Beijing protests, the more resolute the Philippines becomes. The more they oppose, the faster the US military upgrades its weapons. So now the issue is no longer just that small upgrade. The real problem is that the knife deployed at their doorstep hasn't been removed. In fact, it's been sharpened right on site, making it even more dangerous. Originally, they had hoped to win over the Philippines, but now the Philippines has completely sided with the US. Armed with the confidence given by America, they're now openly challenging China. The CCP now finds itself in a deadlock. It can't fight, yet it can't back down from the criticism. It watches helplessly as this evolving missile system takes root in the Philippines, placing its southeastern coast, South China Sea Fleet, and all key strategic locations within a 10 to 15-minute strike radius. It seems that all of Beijing's cards have become ineffective overnight. What infuriates and humiliates Beijing is that, upon reflection, they realize they have fallen into this deadlock step by step, orchestrated by the US and the Philippines. Step 1. They start by saying it's just a temporary deployment, a simple exercise that will be over soon, making you think that it's no big deal. Step 2. After the exercise, they find various excuses to delay withdrawal, refusing to leave and leaving you frustrated and powerless. Step 3. Once you've gotten used to its presence, they announce an indefinite stay, turning temporary into permanent. Step 4. The plot reveals its true nature. The Philippines, seeing how ineffective the system is, directly calls out, "This thing is amazing. We want to buy a set." Every step has been a deliberate crossing of Beijing's red lines, jumping back and forth. Each protest only becomes background noise, pushing them further along to the next step of their plan. So when we look at it now, this is no longer just a simple missile system. How deadly is this weapon really? First, the geographic location is critical. What does the 2,500-kilometer range from the northern Philippines mean? It means the entire southeastern coast of China, your wealthiest, most crucial economic region, including Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, are all within the enemy's crosshairs. In fact, theoretically, it could even reach Beijing. This is exposing the economic and political heart of the country directly to the tip of someone else's knife. Second, the time window is even more deadly. In the past, when we talked about the US-China rivalry, intercontinental missiles would take about 30 minutes to arrive, giving some time for warning and response. But now, from the Philippines, a Tomahawk missile arrives in just 15 minutes. Your early warning system barely has time to react, and the missile has already landed and exploded. How can you defend against that? There's simply no time to respond. Third, strategic vulnerabilities, blocking the vital lifeline. The location of the Typhoon system is perfectly positioned to block the most crucial nodes of the first island chain. One hand locks the Bashi Channel, while the other grips the Taiwan Strait. The PLA's southern and eastern theater commands, with all fleets attempting to break through the island chain, are effectively trapped at their doorstep, unable to move. But the most deadly part is the maddening uncertainty. Beijing has no idea when it will start. Beijing doesn't know which island it will move to next hour, and you have no clue how many sets the Philippines will buy after being persuaded. This pervasive, unpredictable, strategic ambiguity renders the PLA's entire response plan meaningless. This is not just a missile system. This is a knife pressed against the CCP's throat. That's why Beijing has protested 7 times. So, do the CCP's so-called aircraft carrier killers and the Chinese combat system still have any use? Today, let's play the role of weapons inspectors and turn the PLA's armory upside down to see what exactly they have to counter the Typhoon missile system. If you only watch the Global Times or CCTV, it can certainly seem intimidating. In the sky, there are J-16 fighter bombers capable of carrying the Thunder III precision-guided bombs, claimed to hit any target with pinpoint accuracy. At sea, there's the 055 class destroyer, hyped as the best shield ship in Asia, equipped with the Yingji-18 anti-ship missiles, and the 093 class nuclear submarine, capable of launching Changjiang-10 cruise missiles stealth from beneath the water. On land, the CCP has its trump cards, the aircraft carrier killer DF-21D, the mission-accomplished DF-17 hypersonic missile, and the long-range Changjiang-10 cruise missile. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? With air, sea, and land capabilities combined, it seems like a massive net cast to destroy the Typhoon system. But war isn't a PowerPoint presentation, and reality is often brutally disappointing. All these seemingly powerful weapons face a common and fatal problem. Until the problem is solved, what you hold in your hands are simply the most expensive fire starters in the world. The problem is, you can't even find where the Typhoon is. First, the satellites have become blind. The Philippines has over 7,000 islands. Any corner with a bit of flat land, as long as the U.S. military's C-17 transport plane can land, becomes a base for the Typhoon system. What about the CCP's reconnaissance satellites? They follow fixed orbits, like a security guard patrolling on a schedule. By the time it takes 12 hours to orbit half the Earth and return to check in and take photos, the Typhoon system has already completed its strike and enjoying a coffee on another island, hundreds of kilometers away, preparing for the next round of attacks. What you capture are always empty bases and a mess of debris. Second, the reconnaissance planes are like suicide squads. Some might say, what about the WZ-8, a hypersonic reconnaissance aircraft? It sounds futuristic, but it has a huge flaw. It can only fly in a straight line, and it's a one-time use, with an absurdly high cost. More importantly, it takes a posthumous photo and then immediately moves on. As for the slower, propeller-driven planes like the Y-9 or KJ-500, their targets are even larger than commercial airliners, and before they even reach the Philippines, they might be shot down by an F-35 from the U.S. military. Thirdly, the deadly time gap. This is a fundamental flaw in the PLA's entire combat system, caused by both bureaucratic inefficiencies and outdated technology. Let's do the math. Even if you're incredibly lucky today and the satellite happens to capture the target, the entire process goes like this. Finding the target takes 2 hours, then confirming the coordinates, passing it through layers of reports, asking for approval from leadership, and issuing orders takes another hour. Finally, the missile takes 1 hour to reach the target. In total, that's 4 hours. How long does it take for the Typhoon to finish and leave? With the C-17's global mobility, it takes just 2 hours to arrive, unload, assemble, and aim. Once the strike is done, they immediately pack up and board the plane, all in under an hour. 4 hours versus 1. This is a race between the tortoise and the hare. By the time your $1 million Dongfeng Express missile finally arrives, it could end up exploding over an empty field. So you see, the real issue isn't whether the PLA's missiles work. The Changjiang-10 is very accurate. The problem is, no matter how powerful your bullet is, you have to find the enemy first. The rules of the game have completely changed. In the past, everyone would line up and exchange fire, but now the enemy is an invisible assassin, appearing and disappearing at will, ready to stab you at any moment, and you won't know where they are. This brings up an even more critical question. Since the U.S. Typhoon is so powerful, does China have a similar system? The answer is yes, and it looks technically impressive too. But when you make this comparison, you realize that there's an even more despairing gap in the technical differences. This system is called the Changjiang 100 or DF-100. According to U.S. intelligence, this thing not only has a range of 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers, much farther than the Typhoon's Tomahawk missile, but it's also terrifyingly fast, flying at 4 Mach for the entire distance. To put it in perspective, the U.S. Tomahawk missile only reaches 0.8 Mach. Technically speaking, the Changjiang 100 is like a sports car racing against an old-fashioned car. And like the Typhoon, it also uses a truck chassis, allowing for mobile deployment. Sounds like China has instantly leveled the playing field, a stronger, faster, and farther-reaching Chinese version of the Typhoon. But war isn't about comparing parameters. There's a fatal difference that could make the Changjiang 100 practically unable to reach the enemy in real combat. The difference is the mode of mobility. What makes a Typhoon so terrifying? It's the fact that it could be loaded into the C-17 Globemaster transport plane, enabling global air deployment. This means it can instantly appear on any of the Philippines' 7,000-plus islands, or even at airports in Guam, Japan, or South Korea. Its mobility is measured in hours and spans a radius of thousands of kilometers. And China's Changjiang 100 is hauled by a 10-wheel heavy-duty truck. This massive vehicle can only move on roads at a speed of at most 100 kilometers per hour. Traveling from one province to another takes dozens of hours. One is an airborne assassin, the other is a heavily armored prisoner of the road. Can they even be compared? The US has over 200 C-17 transport planes. China's Y-20 fleet is much smaller, and with a lower payload capacity. It's even unclear whether it can carry such a massive missile system. This leads to a fundamental strategic difference. When the US military's Typhoon is in the air, satellites only see a single plane and have no idea whether it's carrying a missile or not. By the time you react, it's already landed, deployed, and is ready to strike. This is called strategic ambiguity and tactical surprise. China's Changjiang 100, on the other hand, once it leaves the hangar and hits the road, its massive length, dozens of meters long, becomes as glaring as a firefly in the dark under the constant surveillance of hundreds of US satellites. The US military's AI image analysis system could have already marked it the moment it rolls out the garage. This is called full transparency. So while the Changjiang 100 missile itself is technically advanced, its operational mode ensures it cannot achieve the stealthy deterrent effect of the Typhoon. And this is not all. The most critical layer is the cultural difference. This is the root cause that truly leaves Beijing feeling hopeless. Why do US soldiers feel confident enough to offer feedback on a multi-million-dollar missile system, even tweaking it to upgrade it from a 20-minute version to a 10-minute version? And the PLA soldiers might not even have the courage to question the manual. The answer lies in each person's childhood. American kids grow up playing with Legos, dismantling radios, and modifying cars in their garages. Their cultural DNA is try it, fix it, make it better. They're encouraged to make mistakes, to innovate, and to take things apart and rebuild them. What about Chinese kids? From a young age, they're taught to follow the correct answer, abide by the rules, and don't touch things. Their cultural DNA is to follow the rules and don't break it. The goal is to avoid mistakes and meet 100% of the standards. This cultural difference extends into the military, leading to a stark contrast in battlefield innovation capabilities. When the Typhoon system encounters a problem, the US soldier's first instinct is, let me see how I can make it better. But the PLA soldier's instinct might be, I must report this problem to my superiors immediately. Dare you say the new equipment has a problem? In their system, this could be interpreted as doubting the leader's decision, questioning the country's scientific research, and it could become a political issue. At best, you have to write a self-criticism. At worst, it could affect your future. So in the end, war isn't just about missile range, but who can evolve faster, who has lower trial and error costs, and who has stronger innovation capabilities. What makes the Typhoon so terrifying isn't that it's such a powerful weapon, but that it represents an entirely new combat philosophy, a military system driven by frontline soldiers, rapidly iterating in real combat, evolving as it fights. And this, precisely, is where the CCP's military system is most rigid, most backward, and most fearful. What they're facing is not just a missile system, but an entire warfare operating system that they can't understand, let alone replicate. This is the real dilemma that leaves Beijing with no solution in this standoff. Technological gaps can be closed, but how can the gap in thinking and systems be bridged? Now let's turn to reality. Facing this knife that is still self-evolving, Beijing is trapped in an unsolvable vicious cycle. Firing on the territory of a sovereign country, the Philippines, would be the same as declaring war on the US. It would be a military and political suicide, and they dare not do it. Not fight, then they can only watch as this knife becomes sharper and sharper, watching as the Philippines, and possibly even Japan and South Korea, deploy this style missile system, turning the entire first island chain into a massive, unpredictable firepower network, completely blocking their access to the sea. So the Typhoon is like a mirror, reflecting all of the CCP's weaknesses and helplessness in the face of modern warfare. It bursts the bubble of their great power equipment, exposing the rigidity and fatal flaws in their combat system. In the end, they will realize that their greatest enemy is not the far-off US, nor the Typhoon at their doorstep, but the very political and social system that prevents them from speaking the truth, making mistakes, or innovating. This, perhaps, is the most profound lesson this standoff offers the world.